The rain fell in heavy sheets that evening, turning the narrow alley into a slick, treacherous path. Trash bins rattled with the wind, and the scent of wet asphalt mixed with decay lingered in the air. That's when I first saw her, a woman, barely conscious, slumped against the wall, and a little girl beside her, shivering in the cold, clutching her mother's arm. "Sir, Mommy can't walk." The girl's small, trembling voice pierced the storm. It was a plea, raw and innocent, a cry that demanded help, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. John Matthews, a single father and CEO of a thriving tech company, happened to be walking home from a late board meeting. Success had taught him control, precision, and how to keep his emotions in check. But nothing could have prepared him for this. His heart clenched at the sight of the girl's tear-streaked face and her mother's weak, trembling form. In that instant, he didn't think about his expensive suit, his late-night meetings, or the polished world he lived in. He only saw human suffering. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us what it means to care. John knelt beside the girl, his hands steady even as his mind raced. The mother, a woman in her early 30s with long brown hair plastered to her face by the rain, barely lifted her eyes. Her clothes were soaked, and it was clear she had been struggling in the alley for hours. John realized this wasn't just a momentary accident. It was desperation, exhaustion, perhaps even hunger. He asked her if she could stand, but she could barely nod. Every muscle seemed to tremble as though weighed down by invisible chains. With no hesitation, John lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost fragile, yet the heaviness of her suffering pressed into him like a physical weight. The little girl clung to his hand, her tiny fingers icy and trembling. "I'm going to help you, John," whispered, more to himself than anyone else, and started moving toward the main street. Every step was careful. Every glance at the mother and daughter reminded him that this was more than just a rescue. It was a chance to make a difference. As they walked, the little girl, who introduced herself as Grace, whispered fragments of their story. Their car had broken down hours ago, leaving them stranded in a city that was indifferent to their plight. The mother, Sarah, had been unwell for weeks, and the exhaustion had caught up to her that night in the alley. Grace's words were halting, but each one was packed with fear, love, and helplessness. John's heart ached in a way he hadn't felt in years. He understood responsibility, but he hadn't realized how personal it could become when another human life depended on you. By the time they reached the edge of the city, soaked to the bone, John's suit was ruined, his shoes squelching with every step. But he didn't care. He hailed a cab, wrapped Sarah in a thick coat from his office bag, and held Grace's hand tightly. They didn't speak much. Words seemed trivial against the storm of emotions surrounding them. It was only when they arrived at the nearest hospital that the depth of their vulnerability became clear. Nurses rushed to take Sarah from his arms, and Grace finally allowed herself to cry openly, burying her face in John's coat. Days passed. John stayed in contact with the hospital, offering support where he could. He discovered that Sarah had been living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep her small family afloat. There were medical bills she couldn't afford, no savings, and a network that had failed her. John realized that rescue wasn't just about lifting someone from a dangerous alley. It was about helping them regain dignity, hope, and a sense of security. Over the following weeks, John worked quietly behind the scenes. He helped Sarah with her medical care, ensuring she could recover fully. He found temporary housing for the small family and connected them with local resources that could provide employment and support. The transformation was gradual but profound. Grace began smiling again, her laughter filling the small apartment they moved into, and Sarah, though still recovering, radiated a quiet strength that had been hidden beneath her struggle. For John, the experience was transformative as well. He realized that the relentless pace of business and ambition had left little room for real human connection. Holding Sarah that rainy night, seeing the fear and hope in Grace's eyes, he understood that success without empathy was hollow. He began volunteering regularly, opening doors for people who had been overlooked, and in doing so, he found a deeper sense of fulfillment than any boardroom could provide. One afternoon, months after the incident, John visited Sarah and Grace at their new home. They were cooking dinner together, a simple but joyous scene, and Grace ran to hug him tightly, whispering, "Thank you, sir." Sarah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, and in that moment John felt a quiet peace. He had saved them from a stormy night in an alley, yes, but he had also been saved from indifference, from isolation, and from the realization that life's true meaning lay in compassion. If this story touched your heart, please engage with this video. Like, comment, and share so others can feel the power of human kindness and the impact of second chances. Every act of empathy can change a life, just like John's did for Sarah and Grace. Before we close, take a moment to write in the comments how an unexpected act of kindness has ever changed your life, or the life of someone you know. Your story could inspire someone else today. In the quiet of the evening, John walked home alone again, but this time with a heart lighter than it had been in years. The city's noise, the storm, the struggles, they all seemed smaller when compared to the courage of a little girl, the strength of a mother, and the simple choice to step forward when someone needed you most. Life would continue to challenge him, just as it continued to challenge Sarah and Grace, but there was now a shared belief in the power of hope, compassion, and human connection, and sometimes he realized that was enough to light the darkest alley.